No escape, no mercy. Chilling prison nightmares from America and Britain. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you're ready to walk into the darkest corners of the justice system, because once this story starts, there's no turning back. The call came in just after 2:17 a.m. at HMP Greymoor, a cold, aging prison in northern England. A guard doing a routine head count stopped dead in his tracks. Cell B, 17 stood open, its metal door swaying gently, as if someone had left in a hurry. Inside, the air smelled of bleach and rust. On the concrete floor lay an inmate named Daniel Mercer, motionless, bruised, and barely breathing. His sentence was supposed to end in 6 months. Instead, his body was already telling a different story. Across the Atlantic, nearly the same hour, alarm screamed through Red Valley Correctional Facility in the American Midwest. Inmate Marcus Hill, a low-level fraud offender with no violent history, had vanished during a lockdown. His bunk was stripped bare. His shoes were neatly placed beneath it. No blood. No struggle. Just absence. 2 prisons. 2 countries. One terrifying pattern. Investigators would later realize these were not isolated incidents. They were symptoms of a system quietly eating its own. Daniel Mercer wasn't supposed to be in B Block. Court records showed he'd been flagged as vulnerable after reporting threats from a prison gang tied to contraband smuggling. He'd asked for protection. He'd named names. And then, somehow, he'd been transferred straight into the territory of the men he feared most. His final request, logged but never answered, read like a warning. "If I stay here, I won't survive the night." In the U.S., Marcus Hill had made a similar mistake. He'd agreed to cooperate with federal investigators about a guard-run extortion ring inside Red Valley. Phone records confirmed a single call he made the day before he disappeared. It lasted 32 seconds. After that, silence. Detective Inspector Claire Waddington in Britain and Special Agent Thomas Reed in the U.S. had never met, but they were about to chase the same nightmare from opposite sides of the world. Missing logs. Altered surveillance footage. Guards who suddenly couldn't remember their shifts. It all pointed upward, not inward. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Hidden inside Daniel Mercer's mattress was a scrap of paper, folded until it was soft as cloth. Written in shaking ink were 5 words and a number. Red Valley. Cell 214. Ask why. If you think the story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe because what they uncovered next proved there was truly no escape and no mercy. By sunrise, both investigations were moving faster than the systems around them wanted. Detective Inspector Claire Waddington stood inside Daniel Mercer's cell, staring at the peeled mattress foam where the note had been hidden. Red Valley wasn't just a prison. It was an ocean away. That alone made the message dangerous. Prisoners didn't trade international secrets unless someone wanted them silenced. In the U.S., Special Agent Thomas Reed was already inside Red Valley Correctional Facility, his badge drawing uneasy looks from guards who suddenly found reasons to leave the room. Cell 214 belonged to Marcus Hill. Officially, Hill had walked away during chaos. Unofficially, Reed could feel it. No one simply vanished from a locked facility without help. Inside the cell, Reed found something small but damning. Scratched into the underside of the steel bunk was a date and a name. Mercer, transfer confirmed. Reed froze. Hill hadn't just known about Daniel Mercer. He'd known what was coming. Back in Britain, medical staff confirmed Daniel Mercer had survived the assault, but barely. Broken ribs. Internal bleeding. Defensive wounds on his hands. Someone had meant to finish the job and failed only because a guard arrived early. When Waddington tried to interview Mercer, his eyes darted constantly to the door. His voice came out hoarse. "They said it didn't matter where I ran," he whispered. "The deal was already done." "The deal with who?" Waddington asked. Mercer shook his head. "Not inmates. Staff." That single word detonated the case. In the following days, evidence began disappearing. Surveillance footage from B Block was mysteriously corrupted. Shift rosters showed guards clocked in at impossible times. At Red Valley, Reed requested internal emails and received files so heavily redacted they were useless. Someone high up was protecting someone else, and they were doing it on both sides of the Atlantic. Then the pressure turned personal. A British corrections officer tied loosely to Mercer's transfer was found dead in his car, ruled a suicide within hours. In the U.S., a witness who'd agreed to speak with Reed about Marcus Hill's disappearance suddenly recanted, claiming he'd misremembered everything. His hands shook as he signed the statement. The pattern was clear now. Prisoners who spoke up vanished or were nearly killed. Staff who knew too much were silenced. And the systems designed to protect them were actively erasing the trail. Late one night, Reed received an encrypted message from an unknown sender. No greeting. No signature. Just coordinates and a warning. Stop digging, or the next body won't be an inmate. At the exact same moment in England, Claire Waddington's phone buzzed with a classified alert. Daniel Mercer had been moved again, this time without authorization, and no one could say where he was taken. Daniel Mercer's unauthorized transfer sent shockwaves through the British investigation. Detective Inspector Claire Waddington tore through prison records, finding signatures that didn't match, timestamps altered by minutes that mattered, approvals granted by officials who swore they'd never seen the paperwork. Mercer hadn't been moved for safety. He'd been erased. In the U.S., Thomas Reed felt the walls closing in just as fast. His access to Red Valley was suddenly under review. Internal Affairs appeared, asking questions that sounded less like oversight and more like intimidation. Reed knew the message: back off or join missing. But neither investigator did. Waddington finally tracked Mercer to a private medical wing used during overflow, an off-the-books holding area meant to keep inmates invisible. When she arrived, the bed was empty, the sheets stripped. A nurse, pale and shaking, admitted Mercer had been taken again less than an hour earlier. No paperwork. No destination. Just a whispered instruction. He's not to be interviewed anymore. Across the Atlantic, Reed uncovered a sealed federal complaint buried under layers of bureaucracy. It detailed a transnational contraband operation run through prisons, drugs, phones, favors, controlled not by gangs alone, but by a network of corrupted officers and private contractors. Prisoners like Marcus Hill and Daniel Mercer weren't victims of random violence. They were liabilities. Then came the confirmation Reed had been dreading. Marcus Hill hadn't disappeared during lockdown. Security footage, recovered from an external backup someone forgot to wipe, showed Hill being escorted through a service corridor by 2 guards.
Calm.
Compliant.
Alive.
The timestamp ended at a loading bay. After that, nothing. Reed shared the footage with Waddington through a secure channel. She responded with a single line that tightened his chest. Mercer saw the same corridor. The connection was undeniable now. Prison systems in 2 countries were quietly cooperating to remove inconvenient inmates, trading silence for stability. No paperwork meant no accountability. No bodies meant no crime. But someone made a mistake. Late one evening, Waddington received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was weak, rushed, and unmistakable. Daniel Mercer was alive. He had minutes, not hours. He told her where to look and why no one had found him yet. "They don't kill you right away," he said. "They move you until the case goes cold." The line went dead. Reed, meanwhile, discovered his own name had been added to an internal risk assessment, flagged as disruptive. His protection detail was quietly withdrawn. 2 investigators. 1 narrowing window. And a system that had already decided who was expendable. Because the final truth was closer than either of them realized, and it was far more dangerous than they imagined. The final break came not from power, but from fear. Daniel Mercer's last call led Claire Waddington to an abandoned logistics annex attached to Graymore Prison, officially decommissioned, unofficially still wired into the facility. Inside, hidden behind a false wall, investigators found a narrow holding room with restraints bolted to the floor and a medical trolley streaked with dried blood. It wasn't an execution site. It was a waiting room, a place to keep inmates alive until their stories became irrelevant. Mercer was there, barely. Alive but broken, kept sedated just enough to stay quiet. When doctors stabilized him, he finally told the full truth. The contraband network wasn't just about money. It was about control. Prison administrators in both countries had quietly agreed to suppress scandals by removing unstable variables. Inmates who complained, cooperated, or threatened lawsuits were transferred, isolated, or made to disappear. No trials, no records, just silence. In the United States, Thomas Reed made his move before they could stop him. He leaked the Red Valley footage, the sealed complaint, and his own risk assessment to a federal judge and multiple news outlets at once. By the time Internal Affairs arrived to shut him down, the story was already live. Raids followed within hours. Senior officials were suspended. Guards were arrested. Private contractors vanished behind lawyers. At Red Valley, divers recovered remains from a disused quarry adjacent to the prison's old service road. Among them were items belonging to Marcus Hill. He never walked out. He was escorted to the edge of the system and pushed out of it. Daniel Mercer survived, but his sentence quietly ended early. No apology, no explanation, just release papers and a warning never put into writing. He changed his name and disappeared into civilian life, carrying memories no sentence could erase. Official statements called the cases failures of oversight. Reports blamed poor communication. Reforms were promised. But one detail never made the headlines. Of the names Marcus Hill and Daniel Mercer provided, 3 were never charged.
2 resigned.
1 was promoted. The system corrected itself just enough to keep functioning. And somewhere inside prisons across America and Britain, inmates still weigh the same choice: stay silent and survive, or speak up and vanish. Because in places built to contain monsters, mercy is often the first thing locked away. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what the system hopes you never see.